able to deduce the appearance of Mozart from Darwinian first principles. I think it would be just incurious not to ask the question of what is it about. It may be human audition, it may be human status seeking, it may be some human faculty that we haven't yet documented, that Mozart exploited to give us the reaction that we have, and to say that no, that our psychology will never illuminate that and we shouldn't even try, I think would become kind of a tragedy for human knowledge, that you really do want to. And I think that one of the reasons that the humanities now, by their own admission, are often in the doldrums, at least in the universities.
Doldrums is a generous way of putting it.
Yes. Is because of the wall of separation between the subject matter of the humanities and the human sciences, where I think there are enormous insights. Although it'll never be that one will be subsumed into another or predicted from first principles. But I think there is insight to be gained. And in the case of music, I mean, Leviton's work and work that Al Bregman, our mutual mentor, and that I did with him, which helps to explain not music, but some of the tricks that composers rely on to get particular effects. It doesn't predict what they'll compose, but it, I think, illuminates the toolbox that they have in front of them and all the various tricks that they have at their disposal.
Not to change the subject, but we're running short of time. I know the audience, I'm sure, will have some questions. Let me, if I may, move to a sort of the ultimate question about Darwinism and the humanities, Darwinism and humanism. That is, what does it get us in explaining why we're here and what our lives are about? You know, and you hear all the time, and I hear since I've done in the last 6 months, people say with a full heart and an absolute conviction that Darwin in the first case as the prime cause and evolutionary biology as the living expression of it, strips mankind not only of its dignity but of meaning. That is, that by introducing the idea that chance plays an enormously important role in the history of life, by taking away any credible notion of divine creation, and particularly by exploding, and I think one has to see it exploded, any idea of the special creation of man. It's just not credible, as you were saying as we began this conversation, that when you look at the history of the fossil history of Homo sapiens or of homonyms, that suddenly there was a magic finger that pointed someplace between Homo robustus and Homo sapiens and said, this guy is nothing much of anything, this guy is divine. That just, it's very difficult to buy that. So then the question becomes, but there's a genuine feeling that robs us of any possibility of meaningful life. If we're simply here to be deluded by our gonads into reproduction, if we're simply here in a way that the cathedrals that we build and the symphonies that we write are at best epiphenomenon of our genes driving us forward, it seems that it offers an incredibly impoverished picture of what life is about. And there's a kind of cry, a genuine cry of dismay and disbelief that goes up in the face of that seeming discovery, which in turn then engenders, as we know, all kinds of religious reactions. And they can range from a fundamentalist reaction. It isn't true. It can't be true. I can prove it to you. I've got fossil footprints next to dinosaurs. I saw them on the thing. Or to a much more sophisticated, if you like, a much higher kind of response, which says evolutionary biology, Darwinism rests on some kind of faith, so why is your faith any better than anyone else's faith? That we have to finally make a leap of faith, whether it's in the rational sciences and the critical sciences, or in Buddhism, Catholicism, Judaism, whatever it might be, and that therefore there's no sense in which anything that we've been talking about, anything in Darwinism, can refute, alter, dispel both our need for and our right to believe in religious faith. What I try and say in the book is that it seems to me is that it's certainly true that there's nothing in Darwinism that would explain away our capacity for emotion, devotion, dedication, And that in a broader sense, that Darwin himself had a very beautiful and poetic vision of what his theory had made for mankind, which had to do with the contemplation of time. That is, that the crucial thing for people to understand is that we live simultaneously in the tiny, brief hummingbird span of our lives where we love our children, and as Darwin did, watch them die horribly, and have very profound and passionate emotions which can't be argued away or explained away, but that we have to understand those lives in terms of the immense unfolding history of life on this planet and of geological time more broadly, and that contemplating those two times at once wasn't for Darwin a source of despair. It was a source for him of a kind of stoical, classical comprehension of the universe, which didn't deprecate brief time, but which made it all the more poignant by placing it within deep time. And it seems to me that that's a sense in which I'm bewildered when people find Darwinism, or Darwin himself, Charles Darwin, to have stripped us of that kind of meaning. And yet it remains a powerful and passionate conviction.
Yes.
Anywhere you go. How do you respond to it?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to disagree here. So, unfortunately, for the entertainment value of the audience, I have a cartoon that I had in my book, The Blank Slate, which I think captures this from Arlo and Janice, where Arlo is up one night pacing back and forth, and he goes to his son, and his son's sitting in front of the TV munching popcorn. He says to his son, "Why are we here?" The boy says, "To spread our genes." Then Arlo sits and the boy looks up and says, "You still here?" I think Arlo's anguish is what you're putting your finger on. And I agree that there's no reason that just because the universe doesn't have a purpose, or our species doesn't have a purpose, it doesn't mean that we as individuals don't have a purpose or can't find meaning. That there are, ultimately, it does push you to a kind of humanism in looking for value and purpose and morality, not in some unfolding plan of the entire planet and life on Earth, but in our own powers to realize and deliberate among ourselves as to what is valuable and meaningful. And one of them is indeed understanding, thanks to the gift of our cognitive faculties, our place in nature, quite literally, where we came from, what was the process that brought us into being, and that I think there is
the actual process that brought us. The
actual process, right. Yeah, to have our best and most accurate understanding of ourselves. There's an exhilaration in that our species is smart enough and noble enough to have tried to figure it out and to have succeeded as well as it has. And also, there are, to be sure, depressing parts of this picture. It might be nice to live forever, to have a soul that survives the death of the body and lives eternally. It is, I mean, death sucks. I mean, it is kind of depressing to think that all of my experience is due to the activity of an organ which someday will cease to function. But there's also
especially if you work for a newspaper, that's very hard.
Yeah, right. Some sooner than others. But there's also a kind of maturity in understanding that is our state, that we're not fooling ourselves with childish stories, and that within the constraints that we have every reason to believe are there, living the most meaningful life we can, including the realization that there are things that are beyond us. I mean, you talk about deep time, but in a way that's, I think, emblematic of an entire world that is larger than any of us. Time extended unimaginably before us and will after us, but also there are worlds of numbers and logic. There are
space itself,
the physical process that allowed the universe to unfold from the Big Bang, the laws of social organization and morality that might be consequences of realizing that other people have minds as we do. It's certainly not that you're only sitting in front of a TV munching popcorn if you don't believe that there is a transcendent purpose to the unfolding of life. We can figure out an awful lot of stuff, and an awful lot of it is bigger than any of us.
Or a person. Do you not think that, just probing for one last area of disagreement before we open it to, to consensus, to the admiring consensus of the multitudes, that those of us who are in one sense on the Darwinian side, and I hope we've saved Darwinian as a term of art in this hour run the risk of philistinism, that is to say, of neither sufficiently understanding the yearning for meaning that has moved art, religion, and through the centuries, and also for not seeing that the degree to which those kinds of stories that people tell themselves about the world that they